Hi, Gary Fong here. I'm just going to give you a few suggestions for setting up your camera for the best creative and consistency results. Now, a lot of these cameras come out with these completely automatic settings, and those are okay probably for most purposes. However, as a professional photographer, there's certain things that you want to override to make sure that you get the best results. And so I'm going to show you some of the settings that a guy like me would use in shooting an event for the best consistency and creativity. Okay, so here is your Canon D-SLR, and they typically have pretty much the same menus. I'm just going to go ahead and push the menu button here, and let's go ahead and go through the settings. Now, this button right here will allow you to scroll through the menus, so let's just go all the way up, and I'll show you basically the settings that we want to do. Now, quality, that's completely up to you. Let's just go down because I want to show you a couple other things that are, I feel, important. And we'll talk about white balance and custom white balance later. But Colorspace, let me talk about Colorspace for a second. If you are shooting and you're going to be making prints at a photo lab that are, the typical kind of prints, then typically in most situations your camera will default to sRGB. Adobe RGB you'll read a lot about that says it's a wider color space, and that's fine. It has more mid-range detail in the colors, but however you have to make sure that your format can take the entire wide gamut. It's very okay, so anyway, the bottom line is only use Adobe RGB if your situation calls for it. For example, many of the Epson or inkjet printers have profiles that will work in Adobe RGB, but typically, most of the time, stick with sRGB. Okay, we'll go down here into picture style. Now, picture style, typically, when you buy your camera, it's on standard. Now, look what happens to standard. That means +3 saturation. A professional photographer understands that you can't reduce saturation or contrast afterwards. You can only increase it. Portraiture, you'll notice that it takes down the vividness of the colors. Now, if you have colors that are too vivid, and again, this left box is color, this box here is contrast, and if you have the color saturation too vivid, for example, if a person's cheeks are a little bit rosy in the cold weather, they'll be really red. You want to have a more neutral type of look. Landscape, they'll go to +4 saturation because they really like it to be very, very vibrant. They know that you're going to be taking pictures of flowers and things. So what I like to do, and I know that this is the best for most versatility, is faithful. Faithful is 0000 across, and most cameras augment just because they want to look good in the camera store when you're taking pictures with the LCD and they go, ooh, that's real pretty. But you also can augment your color and saturation later in Photoshop or your editors. But faithful will give you the most natural looking photographs. So we're going to pick faithful, and then let's go down here to let's see. I guess that's basically it. Which I want to show you is next, the flash. Okay, so picture faithful. Yep, okay, that's great. Now, let me just move this down so I can show you how the flash works. And here we are on the flash. So, let's see my hat here. Now, on the flash, for the best results, for the best results, you want the camera to be set on TTL. Let me move this just a little bit. On TTL, regular TTL, no plus or minus override. That's very important not to do that because the TTL system is perfect. Now, the ISO, typically, we like to have it on ISO 800 indoors when we can, because what 800 gives you is much faster recycle, and I'll just turn this light on, much faster recycle, and much faster, it won't overheat the head, plus your backgrounds will be a lot more, the ambient light will show through a lot more than, say, 100. ISO 800 is very noiseless in today's generations of cameras, as of, say, 4 years ago, plus ISO 800 is very low on objectionable noise. Now, the metering system, I want to show you. Now for indoor, let me just try this. Now for indoor photography, it's best to put your ISO on 800. And the reason that is because you'll be able to have much faster recycle times. Your backgrounds won't be as dark and dreary because under ISO, say 100, most of your backgrounds will go black. And also, as of cameras, say 4 years ago and forward, if your camera's newer than 4 years, the ISO 800 will not have a lot, very little distinguishable noise. Okay, now, so now on the ISO, if we're shooting indoors, we would like to go with ISO 800, and the reason that is because an automatic is probably okay, but it tends to go more on the safe side. ISO 800 will force the camera to pick up more of the ambient light, and also if your camera is newer than say 4 years, ISO 800 is very low on visible noise. So a lot of people say, oh, I want to shoot on 100 because there's noise. Check sources on the forums or DP Review for the image comparisons between 800 and 100, and you'll find that ISO 800 is pretty much the new ISO 200, for example. Now, this is a very important button right up here. This one is the metering mode button. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and hit that. And you'll see this looks like that little CBS sign right there. That is the correct one to use. This is called multi-zone metering, matrix metering in Nikon. What you don't want to do is you don't want to go like, let me just hit this button again. You don't want to go, oops, that's white balance. Okay, so this right here is spot metering. That's a no-no for most situations unless you're in heavy backlight or everything like that, because typically what it'll do is it'll meter only the middle. So if you have a person wearing a black shirt, the meter will only meter the black shirt and try to turn it light medium gray, and therefore with a black shirt being gray, of course the faces will be completely blown out. Or if the person's wearing a white shirt, it'll try to darken that white shirt into middle gray and then make the shots completely underexposed. Now this is a huge reason why people have incorrect exposures. A lot of times when people say my camera's not working right, they'll show me the camera and I'll see that right there, or I'll see let's hit that again. Or I'll see this. This is center weighted metering, and that means it's going to take the center third of the photo. Same as spot, not as severe, but also not a good idea for most situations. Canon put a lot of thought and energy into making the metering system, which is this multi-zone, and this is great for most situations. It will basically interpret your scene, evaluate what it thinks you're trying to meter for, and then meter for that. So for indoors, you'll like to shoot at ISO 800 most of the time. Again, faster recycling time, low noise, brighter backgrounds, and also the nice thing is having more open apertures, so your backgrounds will look more blurry, and your foreground will pop into focus like this. You might, well, anyway, you can't see it, but out here in the background, you can kind of see that that's all blurry. That's the look you want. And then when you're going outdoors, then you can take it up to 100, because 100, what it'll do is it'll force your apertures a little bit more open. So this is some settings that a professional photographer would typically use, the camera settings and the metering settings, and this will give you the best results for most situations.